How did you first get started in real estate?
Well, so when we first moved here, to this area, my husband and I were looking. We had a really hard time finding a real estate agent that would show us properties. We were in the beginning of a 5-year plan. We weren't really necessarily serious, and that may have been part of it. But we were, we could make a jump at any point. And we found this unique house.
Where are you moving from?
Moving from the Memphis area.
Nice.
And so we had a lot of trouble getting someone to show us properties. We finally found a couple of people, but they weren't very engaged. We had a lot of questions about the area. Found this house that we fell in love with. We were too far apart on price. It was a foreclosure, so we basically had to wait till the price dropped down before we were able to buy it. But going back, when we were shown the house, the realtor didn't know anything about the house. They knew very little to nothing about the lake. And, so
you came specifically looking for lakefront property?
Looking for lakefront. I told my husband we had decided that it didn't matter where we moved to because he just needed to be within an hour of an airport for his job. And so we decided that, I said, lakefront, let's look. We decided we would look in Tennessee and we'd look in Arkansas. Nice. But we decided East Tennessee was a little bit better because
It's just better.
Well, yeah,
it's just better.
But you can go a lot of places from here, and it not be an intense drive. You can go up to D.C. if you want to go learn a little bit about history, and you can go to Florida from here pretty quickly. There's a lot of different directions you can go, and there's not much in the Midwest to do. So,
yes,
it made more sense to come to East Tennessee, plus the familiarity here. Anyway, so we bought our house. It was a long process, and I'm not going to get into that because that's not really relevant. But our girls were little. I was pregnant with our second daughter when we moved in. My husband and I started talking about, I was a stay-at-home mom. We started talking about, okay, what am I going to do when I go back to work? We wanted to wait until the girls were at least 3 years old where they could stay, maybe do a Mother's Day out or just daycare once a week. I don't want somebody else raising my kids, but I wanted to go back to work. And we saw a billboard, and the billboard was for a realtor, one of which I had called and was not interested in really helping us, not returning calls. And I thought, well, shoot, if I could just answer the phone, I can figure out the information. If I can just answer the phone and respond to people.
Yeah, I feel like that,
I
with
should
any
do
business
okay.
that is, of like how many businesses have just been started from people that said, I might not know how to do that thing, but I at least know how to pick up the phone, and I can go figure that out enough.
Like I know how to research and find information.
Yes.
And so that's kind of how it all started. And so I went and I got my real estate license, and I was like, well, this is a great thing because I can do it around my kids. My husband was gone for a month, home for a month at the time, and I was like, well, I can, this is something I can do part-time. I found out I absolutely love what I do. Nice. And it's over time it's turned into a full-time job, and not just a job, but a career and something I enjoy waking up to go do every day.
Nice.
So
yeah, how many homes do you think you've sold just since you started?
Probably about somewhere in the range of about 400 homes.
Jeez.
Yeah. My first 2 or 3 years, I doubled my income every single year. And then, of course, now we've had some roller coasters. It got crazy over COVID. And, I made more money than I could have ever imagined. But I worked really hard. I didn't feel like I was given as good a service. And now I kind of found this happy medium. I take the clients I want to take, and I don't take the clients I don't want to take.
That helps.
And, really focus on giving the best quality service, the kind of service I would like to get, no drama, have a solution to when I find out there's a problem, I don't bring my clients into the problem. I find the solution, and then we talk about the problem and how we're going to solve it.
So do you think like your original coming to, or not just coming to Tennessee, but the thought process of if I could just pick up the phone, has that worked?
It has.
Nice.
It has. Over and over again, I'll hear people say, oh, you picked up your phone, or, oh, you responded so quickly. If somebody texts me, even if I can't help them right away, within an hour, you're going to hear back from me regardless. Even if it's just hey, I'm with someone, Obviously being here, I'm not answering my phone or sending responses, but they know that my clients know that they'll always get me quickly. They're not going to have to wait a day or wonder if I'm going to respond to them or not. And across the board, I see it in complaints on various groups that I follow and work with online, that some of the people's biggest complaints is their agent never calls them back or never responds to their questions.
Mm-hmm. And that's what creates, to me, just creates different I think competition is good in any type of scenario. But if there's, you don't want unnecessary competition almost of like, you just created another realtor. If you would have just picked up the phone, it's different than someone just started out with this ambition of like, well, my mom or dad was a realtor and I want to go, or whatever it is, a tradesman or whatever. How many people and how many service businesses are out there now simply just because I can do it better than them? Like, that's like just the grit of the American dream almost.
Well, and it's not always, and you don't have to be the smartest. I don't claim to be the smartest. You just have to be willing to communicate and be able to follow up and do what you say you're going to do.
Have some sort of process.
Yeah.
Yeah, people get caught up. It's almost like working with visionaries or the ones that are like, that's what I think there's this book called Smarter Leaders, Smarter Teams. And a part of that book is just like you have the visionary, you have this, you have that, whatever. If you have one person that can think through all that kind of stuff, that's great. But then as a business owner, you'll understand where you try to start implementing systems into something, but then you have clients calling you to where you need to be the visionary and the face and the whatever. And if you don't have that person that can handle the operations or the mundane tasks, then it's like, I need to be doing the thing that's making me money and not this stuff.
Well, I think in this business, just as with yours, relationships is a huge part of our business. If you're just there to make a quick buck, you're not going to be successful in the long term. You might be on the front end, but you're not going to have long-term stability. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to create a bad repertoire. Mm-hmm. And, these relationships that we create, not just with our clients, but with our vendors or our other people that are part of our business, just as you're a part of my business. It's important that we have a good relationship. Mm-hmm. Because there are things that I can benefit from you, just as hopefully I bring something to the table for you as well.
It's mutually beneficial. Like whenever I first started, I come up with this. When I say I come up with a saying, it's not really that. But probably 6 months ago, I've been doing this now for roughly 3 years, at least on my own. And something I didn't account for at the very beginning was other men and women's pride and how. Okay, I realized the point of connection of trying to be connected with someone. How like, hey, I'm not just trying to be parasitical. It can be, here's the value that I can bring to what it is that you're doing. You can still be the hero of your story. I'm here to help figure out just like how in real estate you have to have what is it called? CPUs? Like the credit.
Yeah, CEs, continuing education.
Of like, hey, I can help provide in a sense of waterfront property. Here's the things that I can help provide here's the line items. You don't need to go spend time to go learn that. So it's good to have someone that's there. But it didn't make any sense to me as to how many people that owned that either realtors or dock builders or custom home builders, whatever it was, mm-hmm. people doing shoreline construction or deconstruction or people that were moving to or selling real estate on the lakefront of like, I don't know you and I don't want anything to do with what is it you have. And it's not that like I wasn't offended in the sense of like, well, forget you. It wasn't that. But I was like, why not? Like, I need you and you need, like, I think we need each other.
Yes.
And to explain that and to try to talk through that to someone who is just set in their ways of like, I'm doing this and I don't need anybody else. Like, I've got finally settled enough into what it is that I'm doing enough to be like, okay, I'll see you when we see you. And I don't know if you're going to survive. I don't know if you're like at some point you're going to have to get to the place of, I need an admin person. I need an accountant. I need a whatever. If you think you can go and do it, then have at it. But yeah, are you happy with East Tennessee? Like, is that the spot?
Oh, yeah. This is the first time that I've lived somewhere where I said, I don't want to live anywhere else. I'm happy here. I'm content. I'm not thinking, okay, 10 years, I want to move to Colorado. I'm not.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got the backup plan if America becomes no longer America, but the likelihood of that ever happening.
Go to Brazil.
No, but
Yes. Yes. Got
but
it.
you think well, if the crap hits the fan, so to speak, we can always expat to Costa Rica or Panama or somewhere like that.
Mm-hmm.
But as long as I can, I'm going to be here. This to me is the best of both worlds. It's Florida's a beautiful place. I love sandy beaches. I gravitate toward a big sandy beach, but I don't like the idea of a hurricane coming in and taking
real.
away the home that I've worked so hard to create and grow.
Yeah.
And I understand why people like to live down there, but that's not a risk I'm willing to take. And so these inland lakes give that beautiful opportunity to get the mountains here.
Yes.
You get the beautiful water. You get all the wildlife that comes with it. I mean, it's
And the southern
to me,
people.
yes,
Which can be whatever. You got your butt heads everywhere.
It's a very magical. My nose itches. It's a very magical place here, I think, because there's so many things, and I'm not a huge winter person. I don't love the cold weather.
Yeah.
But if we don't have that, you learn that you miss those things. I've lived in a tropical environment for a few years, and it was wonderful, but I missed the seasons, and we have all that. I've got everything that I had when I lived in a tropical climate here, except for I now have seasons, and I do have to deal with a little bit of winter weather, but it's not like
It's
living
a few months as opposed to.
Yeah, it's not
whatever.
like being in the Northwest or being in the Northeast or Minnesota or anywhere else that might have a lot of cold weather. That's just
I've got to travel across the world. I was a touring musician for however many years, and getting to go to Japan and Colombia, South America, Brazil, and Canada, Mexico, all across the United States. And I always point back to I don't want to live anywhere else.
right.
Chattanooga, Knoxville, East Tennessee, like just Tennessee in general. I'm like, that's the spot.
Yes.
And I've kept it when I say I kept it like close to the chest, because I don't want people to find it just yet. But I know that we need people to be able to come in for commerce and this and that and whatever. But it's like, can y'all wait a little while?
Well, and a lot of the locals are very frustrated. People who've lived here their whole life of why there's so many people coming from. We're seeing a lot of people from Chicago, a lot of people from New York State, a lot of people from out west, Washington State, Nevada, California. We see tons of people coming this way. They don't all stay because while they think that's a better thing, they've got certain things they like about their area. But our locals, but they haven't traveled. They haven't seen why this place is such a gem, and they don't understand that some of these people that come in are amazing, and they really contribute to our community, and they really make what we have here special.
Yeah, it's been cool to see the folks that will come in from, like you said, some of the states that you're talking about, and then they come down here, and it's like I'll talk to them like, I woke up and my neighbor told me hello. Like, is there something wrong? They're like, I've never had that.
Right.
Where did you come from? They're like, from New York or from California or from whatever. And everyone just puts the blinders on, which is, I'm all for staying in your lane and minding your business. I'm all for that. But at the same time, be a community of people. That's, I think, the East Tennessee, specifically East Tennessee. I can't speak to the central or west part of Tennessee, but East Tennessee, it does feel like there is this sense of I got your back, communal, civic duty, but also even in the business sense. I would say for the majority, there is the sense of, hey, I'll help you, you help me, let's figure out some mutually beneficial something so that whenever we rise, we'll rise together. Yes. And then if it ever comes to the place of you're doing your thing and I'm doing mine, that's cool, but I think we need each other for the time being.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's cohesive to me that way of the culture of East Tennessee. You also find it in the service industry, at least in what we do.
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely. What do you think you can do, to help agents that are unfamiliar? One of the big problems that I see is I see a lot of agents come in from the big cities. Maybe someone from out of town said, "Oh, we need a big city agent because that's what they've always worked with." To help them I guess, navigate better. One of the big problems I find is when somebody's coming from outside of our area, an agent comes in, and they tend to have zero knowledge on the lakefront. And when I'm a listing agent, that's fine because I'm going to give them every bit of information that they need to encourage their buyer to purchase my seller's home. But one of the big things I see is a lot of them, they just have no clue. And then they become a listing agent listing a home on these lakes around here. And, they don't know. I ask them questions about their dock permits, and they don't have any ideas on how to, what they need to do or how they get the info. And a lot of times, of course, as the buyer agent, I mean, it is, it's up to the buyer to find that. But it doesn't seem like they are pushed very much to try to
There's
find
no
the
accountability in it.
It kind of, and I think, and it may be, I don't know, I don't know if it's a lack of accountability. It may be I don't know what I don't know, so I'm not going to ask.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a little scary to me, especially when you're dealing with these $1 million homes.
Yes.
And things around here. You've got somebody coming in and they're paying cash, which, whew,
That means something.
Yes, it does mean something.
It's like they deserve this type of concierge service of like, hey, give me the specific details.
Yes.
Like that's a big risk assessment.
Yes, and they want anything and everything. And like when I go into the MLS, I'm looking at this whatever $1 million home, and it's got this beautiful lakefront. I go into the MLS to go get my client more information. There's no dock permit in there. There's no property condition disclosure in there, and we can go into some different things on that on another day. But it's very disheartening to see that we're not getting some of these. And another thing that's a little on my side, not so much on yours, the septic disclosure.
Oh yeah,
we just want to know how big is that septic, and what do you think we could do at least on your end? Is there something you think that would help us communicate better? I mean, obviously doing these podcasts and such, they're definitely going to put the information out there, and I'm very excited about that because I think as a realtor, I think that we all can grow if we all do a better job. I think we can all do a much higher quality job for our clients, if we can provide them better service.
Yeah, I mean, I think it boils down to how far do you want to go for the client? I think that every individual, every realtor, every business owner has to be able to ask that. Because some people just want to make their commission and move on to the next, or make their paycheck or whatever it is. How I believe I can help provide how I can help realtors, anybody that's transacting any type of land or homes, pretty much is just be the local guide. I mean, it's one of those of like, hey, maybe I don't know the answer to this as the realtor, but like, let me call the redhead. He ends up knowing, he's the specialist that's in all of this.
Right.
And it's the way that I see it is that you need to be the hero of the story because you're the one that's making the transaction. You ended up acquiring this client somehow, some way. I didn't. If I'm there to assist you, I'm not there to go and take over the conversation. I'm not there to go in and try to, boister my way in, but it's how can I come up under what it is that you're already doing and be there in addition to what you're adding. And if I can help make you look good in the sense of you just spatted off all this information because of, or like, hey, let's get on a 3-way call or something, and I can go and spat off all of this information and that you probably don't have the time to go and learn. And why the heck would you? Because it goes back to what we were talking about earlier of I would rather go do the things that's going to go make me money as opposed to, all right, I can go do the books. I can go and do my posts. I can go, or if you're generating something of like, all right, how can you automate this? Can AI do something? Can I pay someone to do it? I guess the short version of it is how I can help realtors is like, let me just be your local guide and let me help make you the hero of the story in the sense of the story that is this person that's coming and buying this $1 million home or this $1 million property. They've got questions and they might not have answers unless you get on TVA's website and ask and look at very general things, but there's a lot of ambiguity that goes into it because I can give you a list of here's 17 things that you need to know, but here's the variables and here's the variable of the variable. Like, just call me. To me, it's that simple.
Well, I figure it's probably like our stuff. Everything has a variable, and nothing is the same. And
Never.
Every single
and it's always
process,
changing.
Yes, every single home that I sell, even at 700 or 800 homes that I've sold, I learn something new with every client. There's some little tidbit of some kind of information that I know. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I know stuff that these 30-year veterans don't know, and obviously they know things that I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll come across, and I'll be speaking with an agent, and I'm like, well, you need to look at X, Y, and Z. And they're like, huh.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a long-time veteran.
Yeah.
There's so much. And, of course, with our business, we're the experts in buying and selling property. We're not an expert in
shoreline regulations.
Exactly. And so having someone who can navigate that for us is a huge help, because we need to stay. We are required, not just we are required to stay in our lane when buying and selling real estate. I can give some basic information, but ultimately, if someone wants the actual square of it, mm-hmm. that they need to talk to the expert, because my expertise is not that. I live on the lake. I've got a dock. I've been through 3 or 4 dock permits mm-hmm. personally, but I'm still not considered an expert.
Yeah, and I hate that, whether it be legally or at least just by perception, that realtors are when I say held liable, maybe not in the full legal sense, because it is a buyer beware. It's a buyer beware state. Is that
Correct.
right? Yeah, it's a buyer beware state. So maybe you're not held liable to a certain degree. However, maybe in the eyes of the people and the perception of like, all right, you would end up getting a lawsuit of, I dealt with someone who had on the listing, it said, all right, here's the dock that's on this property. And it turned out it was actually the neighbor's dock. And then now that person ended up suing the real estate, either the agent, the brokerage, of like, hey, you didn't do your due diligence in figuring out. It would be massively different of, we don't know whose dock that is, whatever, as opposed to like, it's on the actual listing itself.
Right.
That's crazy to me. Just ask. And I'm not even going to get into that. That's a whole...
Yeah,
I'm not even going to get into that. That's, it's, I don't think it's fair that you guys are held liable for those types of things, even if you're not fully liable, but at least the perception of the people is like, they should know.
Well, and it can come from the most kind, great client
yep.
that you've had. We carry insurance, and, that process, fortunately, as a real estate agent, as a realtor, I've never been sued, and I hope that it continues that way.
Yes.
But for most of us, it's not it's a win. Mm-hmm. And I've seen in my husband's business, we've had to deal with lawsuits, and it's not that necessarily that person had a right to be made whole in a particular situation. We had an injury on site. It had nothing to do with us. Unfortunately, it there was supposed to be some recourse. So they, while the it certainly wasn't our fault by any means, but they everybody gets sued at that point. Mm-hmm. We get sued.
Yes.
The subcontractors get sued. Our insurance sues the subcontractors.
Yes.
And so there's lawsuits flying everywhere when something doesn't go perfectly, and you can get involved in that. And so they always tell us, stay as much in your lane as you can mm-hmm. to avoid these things.
Yeah, you need to be able to give grace to those that if you don't know, you don't know, and you don't know what you don't know. I get all that, and even when I've been in this now, I've been doing permits for 6 years, doing it on my own for 3, but there's still permits that I get into now that I'm like, we're going to get into this together, and just here we go. Yeah. And that's where like I have to, like, they trust me enough to like, you're leading me through this. I the customer am not leading this charge. Own it. That's like, just as a business owner, you have to be able to say, all right, hey, federal government, here's what we got.
Right.
What do you What do you think? And
Right.
And you have to do the back and forth and the song and dance. And that's where I'm hopefully able to provide some value in the sense of I think I know every single TVA agent that's at least on the watershed level that like the people that are actually coming out and viewing your dock, doing the actual site visit, because that's a part of the TVA process.
And that's what the permit somewhat pays for as well.
Yes.
A lot of people don't realize, well, why is it so expensive?
Yes.
And
why did it go from $250 to $500 to now $1,000 as of January 6th of 2025?
yes.
And what a lot of folks don't know is that TVA, at least what they say, they weren't making any money from that. That was just like they make money in the. Now I'm also not going to speculate on what TVA may or may not be making money in. But
Right.
at least what they're telling me is that they don't hardly make money on the permitting side because they charge $500 when it actually costs like $750 to $1,000. And it was last year about this time where they introduced the cost recovery form. Whenever you add trees or whenever you want to remove trees, whenever you want to add a boat ramp or you want to have dredging. Because what folks don't know is that whenever you ask for trees to be removed, that Tennessee is actually a sanctuary state for bat habitat. You don't think that bats are going to be the thing that messes your whole dock permit up and how it all correlates. Whenever you ask for dredging, you're taking actual land-based material out of the lake and you have to go dispose of it somewhere else above the flood line. And under the lake, like you don't know, like a lot of this used to be Native American ground, and they literally have to go to the tribes of like whatever the area was. I'm like, hey, is there any type of burial grounds here? Is there any type of sites that you guys know of that we need to be made aware of? And there's a lot of back and forth. And whenever you add a boat ramp, it's the same exact thing. So the cost recovery is you give TVA $1,000 if they end up going over that $1,000 because they have to bring in that third party terrestrial zoologist and archaeologist and have the team out there to sift through arrowheads and bones and whatnot. They end up billing you back of, hey, we went over this $1,000. Now we need an extra. I've never seen it go over $500-ish somewhere. That's for a smaller, I guess for a mid-sized project is what I would call it. I've never seen it go over that. But yeah, folks don't always know. As a contractor, if you go and tell someone like, hey, this is going to be $1,000, and then you talk to them 3 weeks later like, hey, I'm actually going to have to charge an extra $500. That doesn't always go over well.
Right.
So having someone like me on your side to say, hey, here's the whole spreadsheet of what could come up. I'm not saying all of it will.
Right.
And you also, like, there's this delicate balance of I don't want to overwhelm them with a whole lot of information, but I also want them to understand all of this is included. You tell me when to shut up. And however much you want to know, I'll tell you. And if you want to nerd out on terrestrial zoologists and bats and why that could impact, if you can or can't have a dock, I'll get there with you. Some people will just say, Janson, listen, you've given me too much. Take the money. Please, just for the love of God, go handle it and call me when it's done. Or keep me aware of what's going on because we have a regularly scheduled follow-up process that we do. Once we receive payment, then we go through all the paperwork, get signatures. The first signature says that you allow me to be your authorized agent. The second signature pretty much says is that you're not a politician or that you don't work for TVA or have any type of financial interest with TVA. Once I get those disclosure forms signed, goes to TVA, they say, hey, we've received your paperwork. Somebody's going to be out there to actually do the site visit, and then it's just sometimes it'll take 2-3 months, sometimes it'll take 5-6 months, just depending on what it is.
Do they normally notify you when they're sending someone out?
Usually, so it's fun where sometimes what they'll do is they'll say, hey, we're going to have someone out there in the next 30 days whenever they're sending that email in their car sitting outside on the property. That's literally happened.
Oh my.
Yes, to where it's like, and you're trying to update the homeowner of like, hey, someone's about to be out, because some people don't care, but a lot of folks care of like, someone's about to be out there, heads up.
Well, with the day and age of everybody having cameras, you know, especially in the higher end homes, and then somebody magically is walking through their yard, you know.
Yes.
They have questions. Often ones that aren't present all the time, you know, they'll say, hey, do you mind? I'm seeing somebody, you know, I see somebody over at the house. If they're close by, do you mind running over there real quick? Which I certainly don't mind, you know.
Yep.
I'm not gonna.
That's the East Tennessee neighborly thing to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna obviously, you know, anything more than, hey, how you doing? Just wanted to see.
Just sit back. And I also try to tell homeowners too.
I'm not gonna be confrontational, definitely.
Yeah, like don't do that. I'm like, hey, bless their hearts, a lot of TVA agents are extremely nice in terms of, that's probably not a great way to say that, but TVA agents are approachable, but they also have a job to do in the sense of like, maybe don't ask them 50 questions right now. Like,
Yes.
come to me, let them do their thing. They'll leave. They'll inform us of their findings, and then we'll present if we have to, whatever. A lot of folks will just stand there and like, all right, hit me with your questions. You know, it all different people have different personalities, even inside the federal government.
Oh, certainly.
Yeah,
certainly.
and they're not. I love I love hearing the fear that whenever people call me, they're like, Janson, I heard I'm from out of town, and I heard that TVA is this way, or I heard that they're. I'm like, yeah, knowing that I'm like, that's not necessarily how it is. Like, people are still people. Like, you got your buttheads everywhere you go, but for the majority of the time, a lot of them are nice. Actually,
Oh,
yeah,
definitely.
I haven't had any type of run-ins with that. I'm like, just because it's the federal government. Now, it is the federal government, which we can talk about that all day long, and even on the state level. But yeah, there is absolutely this ambiguity that goes around it. So I guess in the short version of how can I help real estate agents, it's I take out the questions and I help remove the stress for the realtor and for the homeowner because there's a few questions that realtors will ask me, which is, can we put a dock here? Number one. Number two, how big of a dock can we put here? And then, well, how can we configure it? Because we want to try to have winter water. Can we dredge to be able to try to have winter water? You got to think through all those things, and you have to have a dock building mind as well of how can I configure it? Okay, structurally, I know that you need to only span at most 10 feet with posts. So rather than having a 17-foot sun deck, you're going to still probably pay for a 20-foot sun deck because that's the type of lumber that you're buying in 20-foot sections. So can we give you the 20-foot sun deck instead of a 17-foot and then take away from something else to still give you the 1,800 square foot footprint? Like, that's where you have to have not just permitting knowledge, but also I know what I'm doing in terms of dock configurations. And I'm not proficient in the sense of like, I can tell you exactly how many pounds per square inch this carriage bolt can do. Like, I can't, like your husband, and I'm sure is amazing at all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, with some of those things, he's very, very knowledgeable. But then, he and I think things very differently.
Yeah, and that's the good team.
I say, hey, I want a light switch over on that wall, and he's like, how high? And I'm like, I thought they were
medium
all the
height.
same. Yeah, I'm like, whatever height they normally are.
Yeah.
But, there's always options.
Yep.
So,
yeah. And having both minds so that I'm all for, my why is I want to be able to give the most amount of information to whoever's calling me, whether it be a realtor, a homeowner, a dock builder, because everybody has all the same questions. You might have maybe more questions than what a dock builder would, because that means that they've already gone through the buying and transacting of the actual property itself. And now they're like, hey, how big of a dock can we actually build here? So I'm probably giving homeowners and realtors more answers to questions, but I'm there to live. I live in the minutia of it all. So hopefully I can keep you from getting down the rabbit trails.
So why do you think, I mean, I know how important your job is and how much you make my job easier. But for the person that's never worked with you, talked with you, spoken with you, why would they maybe go with you as opposed to, just going directly to XYZ dock builder?
Yeah. So the majority of dock builders that I work with, they all build, I would say, quality stuff. I don't have anybody in my Rolodex. I don't deal with the guy that's got 3 teeth in his head and is not going to show up sober. I don't deal with those people. Everybody that I work with are right. There's absolutely some of those. I deal with people who actually know what they're talking about and have been through it enough to where they've failed and succeeded, but the times that they failed, they rose above and were able to, So the way that I see it, different people see it different ways. What I see it is what you're buying, you're going to buy a quality dock, whether you call A, B, or C, or D dock builder. What I'm after is what's the customer experience like from the point of sale to the very end. Does this person know enough to where, all right, we're charging you $100,000 for this dock. Okay. Are you going to change order the crap out of them to where it's ultimately going to end up being $130,000 because you maybe didn't think through all of this stuff beforehand? Are you going to get a deposit for $150,000 dock, knowing or not knowing that, hey, you quoted an 1,800 square foot dock when they can only have 1,000 square feet? If you had just called me, I can eliminate all that, because then you look like a you know what
Yes.
to the customer, to the consumer, of like, you didn't know that? Or if you had just called ahead of time to say like, hey, I'm going to call my local TVA specialist or TVA subject matter expert on shoreline regulation, then it looks like you're offering transparency to that client. My goal and my hope is that I'm the first call that you make. I would say don't call a dock builder first, because the questions that the first question is not what dock builder. The first question to me is, okay, what type of dock can I have here? Is it a floating dock? Is it a fixed dock? What size can I do? What can I have those questions answered first, because I've been in this industry 6-7 years now, to where there's different dock builders, in my opinion, that are good at some things and not all that great at others. And some people are great with composite decking. Some people are great with treated lumber and doing this. And do you choose round poles or square poles, and which one is more malleable? And the people that actually pay maybe more attention to detail, I'm here to help alleviate all that. So if you're the consumer, you're buying, you've bought this property. Hey, Janson, I want a permit. I don't know of any good dock builders. Okay, cool. So I have a Rolodex of dock builders that I work with on this lake. What I can do for you is a service that I provide is, in addition to getting the permit, is I'll go get you a few quotes, and I can walk you through them, how everything is apples to apples. There's some people who will charge $5,000 for a closet. Some people that'll charge $6,500 for a closet. Why a $1,500 difference? Why
for a 32 square foot closet?
That's it. It's literally. I'm like, what's like? Help me understand. But the different people charge different ways. Of like, a lot of dock builders, like, their heavy profit is inside of their post and frames cost, which that's where a lot of the labor is. I mean, that's where you have to bring the barge in and do all that kind of stuff. My whole goal is to be the first call, to where I can work through all of that with you. You also don't have to go through the sales process with somebody else, because then you're getting calls from 3 different people who quoted what company are you with again? Just talk to me. I'll give you the layout. And then if you have, hopefully you should have somewhere between a $5,000 spread. Someone might be at $100,000. Somebody else might be at $105,000. Okay, so you're somewhere in the neighborhood. If someone's at $100K and you got someone that's at $125,000, I got questions. Like, also the type of clientele that I believe that we both bring. Some people are willing to pay that extra $25K for that, as long as show me the $25,000 value that you're bringing.
Right.
Help me understand that. Am I going to have specific hidden fasteners where I'm not going to have to see this, and it's going to be more aesthetically whatever? Is the lift one of those that you can just press a button and it goes up and down, or am I going to have to sit there and crank it? Like, it helps walking through all that, but that's where you need the answers to questions.
Yes. Well, I've learned a lot of things, over the years, with building our own docks. You don't just need a dock builder. You've got to have an electrician too, if you want. And a lot of people.
And how much power?
Right.
How much power is going to go to that lift? Because if you go 110 and you have lights on the dock and you also go and flip the lift on, everything will just trip, and you will never, it'll take you 2 hours to get your boat down.
And having somebody who is, I'm sure who the guys that are skilled at and keeping it cost effective to bring that power from the house to the dock underground.
Yes.
Which is a whole, that's a whole different discussion, but that's a big part. And, a lot of people don't realize when they're getting a dock or considering purchasing a house that has a dock, we need to look, does this have electricity? Does it not have electricity?
Yeah, and is it sufficient enough power?
Yes.
It's that, because people don't think about voltage drop from the house down to the dock is 200 feet. That means you need a certain type of gauge wire to actually have 220 down there. And then you have a basic electrical package. Where do you start putting the breakers and stuff like that?
Yeah.
I cannot tell you that.
Do you want to shut it off at the house? Do you want to shut it off down there?
Because the disconnect has to be above the flood line, is what TVA asks. Where is the flood line? Because if your property is sitting at a slope that's like this, your property line might be at your back porch, which is 200 feet away. Okay, that's the stuff that people don't think through.
Right.
That I'm hoping that I can bring, again, to realtors, to dock builders, to homeowners, of let me go and this is probably the best way to say it. I'm able to walk through the creative process with any of my clients, as opposed to what most dock builders, not all, but most dock builders will say, well, what do you want? 2-slit dock? Okay. Well, here's how much that cost. What does that mean? Is there a sun deck on the side? How big are the slips? What's the back? What's the walkway size?
And how big are the slips is a huge thing.
If you build them too big, then it's all wonky.
Right, but you also want them deep enough. If you think you might upgrade down the road, get it.
Yeah.
You can always have more places to sit until you get there.
Yes, and what most folks don't know too is that you don't always have to call a dock builder to go to drive poles and frames. I 100% recommend call a dock builder, because what you don't want to do, what most folks don't know, is that whenever you put posts in concrete, especially on these legs, because they fluctuate so much, over time those poles will start to suction out, and that will end up making your walkway look all janky and look all haggard, and you don't want that. So you actually have to drive them in. There's a hammer that goes on top of the pole that'll just start pile driving them in, and you go to the point of refusal. But I mean, dock builders are
good dock builders will go to the point of no refusal.
That's a better way to say that. Not everybody does it. That's why call me. I can hopefully steer you away from those people. But it doesn't always take a dock builder to do something, which is, I think, your husband could probably help in this area of sometimes. I cannot tell you how many contractors I work with, not dock builders, but people like you and your husband of, hey, I'm a contractor. I just don't have time to build it, or I don't have the time to deal with the permitting process. But I've got my own guys that can go out here and frame and do this and whatever. Mm-hmm. Great. So I'll go get 3 or 4 quotes on the actual substructure, which is the poles and the frames. Mm-hmm. Make sure that the poles are connected to where that they're not going to start shifting over time, so that someone like your husband can come in and get it a whole heck of a lot cheaper than what other dock builders are charging. That's something that most people don't think of. They think, all right, call a dock builder. Like, I have like you, a Rolodex of other craftsmen, carpenters, electricians that they're not going to charge you dock builder prices. But like, here's all the people that dock builders aren't introducing you to, that they're end up putting 30-ish% over, or sometimes double what they were going to charge to come in, do this simple task of putting down decking, or it's not simple to do a whole entire roof structure, but putting roofing up. A lot of these guys end up hiring subcontractors anyways to go build
it. I mean, that's something. I mean, we hire subs for pretty much everything. My husband is managing the projects, getting materials from project to project, meeting with the building inspector, and a bunch of things I'm probably not thinking about right now. But, he's had a couple of situations where docks have needed repairs, and they will certainly send their people out for that. But I still think a dock builder needs to build the dock, because there's a lot of little nuances about them that somebody who builds on land is not thinking about, just the way the poles are tied together. I mean, you can go around the lake. I know you have, and seen things that were put together haphazardly. We pulled apart a dock at this really beautiful home that was being redone, and there was no support up under the deck boards. Yeah. And I mean, it was complete. I mean, you wouldn't have known it walking on top, but when they pulled it, you could see it was clearly not constructed properly. It was not put together to our standards, and it was in Roane County.
Oh yeah, Roane County.
So fortunately, we had all the permits in place, so it wasn't a big deal. But
Roane County is the only county. I'm sure you know this. Roane County is the only county that will actually call, or at least that I've worked with, and I've worked on every single TVA lake there is. They're the only ones that actually do inspections and will go in and check, da-da-da-da-da. And, buddy, they care.
Yes.
They care, which is great, but they care.
I usually always tell my clients, if you're building a dock in Roane County, you need to get one that has a state contractor's license. Whomever you end up working with, make sure they have that state contractor's license, because they do have to pull that permit. And not just pull it, but close it out.
Yes.
Because now there's a lot of really large problems. And honestly, I need to look further into verifying these for my clients. That's something I haven't been doing. Is making sure that these permits did get closed out with the county, because they're starting to crack down and fine and all these problems. They're not retroactive. They go with the individual, with the homeowner that owns it. So if, like in your case, if somebody has an unpermitted dock, anything that goes with that, the new owner is the one who's liable for it. You know,
Say
the
that a
guy
little
took-
louder, just closer to the mic for just the people in the back. You are responsible once you buy
Whoever
it.
owns the property is responsible for any issues with their permit. This includes the dock.
Yes.
It includes the pathway to the dock.
Yep.
And if you're lucky enough to be in one of the neighborhoods where you can do a little bit more, if you take down a tree and don't get that permit, or the guy that was selling it took down the tree real quick and TVA does their thing with drones or whatever they're doing that period of time, and they
Yep.
notice a tree's down, you're the new homeowner.
It's your
It's
responsibility.
your responsibility.
You're liable.
So
Yep.
these are things and that I like to talk about from my standpoint of what makes me and a few other really good agents, lakefront agents, special is that we know if we see a tree that's been freshly cut down and it's near the TVA line, or we know it's below the TVA line, we better look at that. If you've got an agent that's not familiar with working on these lakes, they're not going to think twice about it. They're going to be like,
Yes.
oh, that's nice. They took a tree down. You got a better view.
Yeah.
Maybe, maybe not.
Yeah. Yep.
Fortunately, I haven't had to chase that down, but I do know of several construction sites that got shut down due to people taking homeowners taking their trees down when they weren't authorized to, and they stopped
The
complete
bats,
destruction.
Carol. The bats. That's all about the bats.
Bats and ospreys
And ospreys, yes.
and the eagles.
Yep.
But ospreys seem to be more often
Yes.
something that they are all about. But $10,000 a tree, is that still the fine?
It depends on how much you want to mess with TVA. Like I've seen it range from $500 to $10,500.
So the bigger the meathead, the bigger the fee.
Yes. It's what it boils back down to.
Kindness goes a long way with them, I've learned. But
Yep. Yeah. Just be kind. And like for
and
example,
if you do make a mistake and you do something wrong, just
own it.
own it. And they're probably a lot kinder.
They are. That's the thing is like they're TVA, at least in like where I deal with, they're not out to just go and like say that you're an awful person and whatever, but like they do have a job in the sense of they enforce, like they have at least a department that goes and enforces the rules of if you built your dock bigger than what it's supposed to be, they're probably going to call you out for it because it's their property. Now, whether you agree with it should be their property or not, I'm not here to discuss all that, but at least the reality that we live in, it's on their property. So they have a right to be able to say this, this, and this, and it's their right to, I guess, maintain that regulation, which that's the stuff that, I'm so thankful that you actually think of this stuff because I don't deal with, I'm thankful that you actually ask the questions and that you've been in it long enough. And I could definitely see the value of if I'm looking for a lakefront property and the areas it is that you serve of why on earth would I want to call some bigwig realtor from Nashville or from Knoxville or whatever, which that's great, but do they deal specifically with this, like with TVA regulation? The answer is
Right.
more than likely no.
And I've learned that it's different from lake to lake. The rules on Loudon aren't quite the same as Watts
Right.
Bar, which aren't quite the same as Chickamauga or Tim's Ford. I get a call every once in a blue moon, for stuff that's further out. But I feel like I can be fairly useful. I always say, hey, this is not my area of expertise, but I know people I can call. And that's when I get you involved.
Yeah.
Because I know that you're going to be able to navigate the things that I can't. Things like even like the lakes that don't allow dock permits anymore. I know that there's some TVA lakes they don't allow any more dock permits.
Yep. Yeah, up above there. Yeah, there's a few, like one particularly up above Nashville. I think is it Percy Priest?
Center Hill?
Either Center Hill or I
Percy
think,
Priest may
Dale,
not.
Dale Hollow.
Dale
That's
Hollow
what it
doesn't
is.
doesn't do dock permits
Yeah,
either.
and I'll get random calls from Dale Hollow Lake of like, hey, I want to put this dock out here. I'm like, good luck. I can't help you. Well, it's on the lake. Yeah, but yeah, I hate being the bearer of bad
Yeah.
news for the people that go and spend all their life savings or a good chunk of something to go buy, and they've been told or they at least perceived, and no one caught their perception that like, hey, I want to go build a dock out here. I'm like, man, I got a hard time with that.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, that's one of the reasons we chose Watts Bar. It's, it's got its own uniqueness. You can still build a dock.
yeah, and that's the biggest lake.
When we moved there, we had a small platform dock, maybe, I don't know, 10, it might have been a little bigger, but 10 by 12, essentially, just a platform. You pulled the boat up to the side. We hooked it up to the to the little things that keep the boat off of the side of the
Yep.
dock, and that's how we did it first. And then one day we noticed some things getting a little wonky, and my husband dove down, and he could stick his hand up under the piling. It's like, well, okay, we're going to have to move this up on our list.
Yes.
And of course, we were at some point going to need new riprap. That's another pain point I see with real estate. A lot of people don't realize that how that riprap is done. That's another thing. And having the right, knowing the right people. If they don't slope it correctly, they don't use the right size rock.
Put an earthen key down there.
Yeah,
like it's a whole thing.
You're gonna have failure. You're gonna have rock slide. You're gonna have spots that are empty, and you can ride all over the lake all day long and probably find a dozen or more where somebody was low cost. There was a post on one of my Facebook groups, a dock builder that was showing off beautiful pictures of what he had done. Unfortunately, it while it looked nice, it wasn't done properly. And I kind of feel bad for those people. It's not my place to sit there and say something, but I look and I'm like, oh, okay, I need to take that person off my list because that's not even kind of how you handle that. And I'm not the dock builder.
Yeah.
I'm just the realtor that doesn't know much about the permitting services.
But you at least know that.
I do know that's not, there's a way to do things. And
it's not just throwing rocks in a spot.
No.
Like that's like if you want to look at it the very unpoetic way of saying it, like you're putting rocks there and putting them there. Yeah, but if you don't have someone that knows how to slope, if they don't have the machinery and they don't have the know-how of like, all right, here's how you slope it. Here's what's going to give us a good 2-to-1 slope. Put the geotextile fabric down first and then put the earthen key.
Definitely.
Like they're like, just throw rocks down there and slope it and you'll be all right. Like,
and I will say that geotextile stuff is amazing.
It is.
But those darn weeds, they figure out a way.
It doesn't matter what you do. It does not matter what you do.
I know we're getting off on a tangent here, but
I'm fine with tangents. I'll have I've done a few riprap jobs just over the last probably 3 or 4 months, and even or the ones that I did last year, they'll end up calling me like, "Hey, did you put the fabric down?" I'm like, "You were out there. You watched me put the fabric down. Every single one. That's what I do." Well, the weeds found a way to be able to do da da da. I'm like, how do you? Because you can't go down there and spray because there's certain types of chemicals that you can and can't use on or near TVA land, and the water's right there, and then it's a water quality issue, which then gets TDEC involved and all that other kind of jazz. But yeah, it's to tell that to someone who thinks like if you have a really good salesman and like they did a great job at selling it, but you're kind of struggling in the application of it, just give it a couple years. That's what sucks, especially in this industry of like you're not going to know something is bad. Usually sometimes you can tell immediately, but like it's really going to whenever things just start to, even as a house, things start to settle, the ground starts to settle a little bit. It's a little bit different than what it started out at the very beginning. You don't see that stuff until 2 years in, and by that time, that person might have already gone bankrupt and move on to the next town, or they're not going to come back because their craftsmanship warranty is over, and now they're not going to come out and fix it.
Well, and you'll get out-of-town builders, and I don't mean like Knoxville builders because the builders are – building in Knoxville is very similar to building here. Yeah. Building in Chattanooga is very similar to building around in the rural areas. But you get somebody from, I don't know, Nebraska. I'm just going to use that as an example, and they come in here and they're getting their builder's license. They come in and they start building on dirt. Mm-hmm. Next thing you know, you've got a 1-inch deflection between one piece of the crack slab and the other piece of this crack slab because they didn't understand that that probably works great. But here, and you see that with I'm sure clientele you get, and they come along and they're like, oh, well, why can't we do it this way? Well, there's a reason.
With riprap, it's one of those to where if you install it incorrectly and you don't put what they call an earthen key you don't have to do it every single time, but if it's on like a 2-to-1 slope and you don't put the earthen key down at the bottom of where the rocks are.
What's an earthen key?
An earthen key is like, imagine like a 1 foot deep by 1 foot wide area that that's the bottom of the rocks.
Okay.
And if you put that there and you put the bottom layer of rocks in that, it'll hold it up like that. Like it actually has something to push back.
Yes, okay. I have seen that when they've been building them before. Yes.
Yeah, and as the land starts to erode, it's not going to just do this to where hopefully you can hopefully you can get it to where you're not having to go back and put rocks there every 2 or 3 years. It'll be like every 10 to 15 years. But yeah, there's too many. I wish that more people would put like, hey, just put some rocks down there. It's relatively inexpensive compared to you spent $500,000 on just the lot itself. You're losing a foot a year just because of all the wake boats and the barges and all just the boat traffic that go on here. I want to put just some rocks. It's more like however much money it is, like it's probably worth, it's still beating whatever your land is depreciating because you're actually losing land.
Well, and the wakeboard boats, and not just wakeboard boats. That's generalizing. There's lots of deep-welled boats.
Yes.
Small yachts, barges. If you're on the main channel, there's lots of things that do the shoreline erosion, having a home that had to have the whole shoreline redone right after we bought the home. I've seen it firsthand, and understanding. I get a lot of clients asking me, well, can we put a retaining wall instead of rocks? And I'm like, well, most likely no, but there's always exceptions. But there's a reason that they want those rocks. They want to. My understanding, and you please correct me if I'm wrong. They're doing it to. They want those rocks because it'll more absorb rather than push that wake back out to come back in again. Basically push it to the other side. I might be completely off.
No,
on that
I don't think you're off. I think that's a piece. The majority of it is, at least to my understanding and dealing with it every single day, is they don't want concrete out in the water. That's even if you do it during the wintertime. All right, the water's down. Well, concrete's not going to go in the water. Whenever the water comes back up, it's mostly grout or some sort of concrete that usually keep those. Now, obviously, if you do a solid concrete wall, it's all concrete. But if you do like ready rock, there's some sort of grout usually that ends up holding that together, or some sort of rebar, and that just, in their opinion, destroys the aquatic life and the whatever, and it doesn't look as natural as it could. So
the chemicals,
the chemicals get into the water, and now we got problems. And if we let I think that's where people maybe not try, but that's where people can abuse that, to where if you let everybody do it, then that ain't going to happen. But like, if you would just let maybe a few people here and there do it, it's not going to be as bad. But everybody, of course, wants to be that one person that TVA allows. But as I just put up in your Facebook group, there's the workaround that's to it. The workaround is rather than go for the workaround specifically for seawalls is don't go do concrete. Don't do ready rock. Now, the rule of thumb, first of all, is if you have a property that's on your right and on your left that both have seawalls, then more than likely you'll be approved for a seawall. But if someone on your right side has it and the left side doesn't, then you're probably not going to end up getting approved. Now, there's variation to that, but I'm giving generalities. But for the simple fact of, if you have a client, let's say that they don't have a seawall on either side, but your client says, hey, we're buying this property, we want to put a seawall there. We want to put a seawall there. The workaround is use all natural stone. You have to go through two entities. You have to go through TVA and you have to go through TDEC, which TDEC is the Tennessee Department of Environmental Conservation. They're the ones that control water quality and all that type of stuff. So you would have to go through them, but it's all natural stone. The same thing as riprap, it's just configured a little bit differently. Now, the thing that sucks is that they don't really talk to one another, so you have to have someone like me to know how do you facilitate this? How do we put these people in contact with one another? Because they don't really do that, so I have to manage it. But that's the workaround to seawalls.
Okay, that makes complete sense. I know there were some people that had some questions of what that workaround meant.
Yeah, I've actually had probably 5 or 6 calls just from that thing of like, hey, I've got a seawall that's out there now, or I just bought this property and it doesn't have anything, and my neighbors don't have anything, but I want to do this and I'm willing to spend the money. Help me. I'm like, heck yeah. And it looks like, that was only a few days ago, so I don't know what all it would look like yet. But the ones that every single one that I've turned into TVA, everybody's gotten approved so far. So I think we found it's not even a loophole, and it's completely legal. There's no there's nothing frowned upon on it. It's just you got to know how to present things. Right.
Sometimes that's everything.
Yes.
And I would assume even when someone wants, because nobody needs to take a tree. Well, I take that back. I guess you would need a tree
sometimes.
If you're putting shoreline erosion control and that's in the middle of a the where it needs to be cut back to make the slope proper.
Yep. The reason why I think that people should end up calling you is I deal with tons of realtors across the entire Tennessee Valley, up in Paducah, Kentucky, in Muscle Shoals, Alabama, Gunnersville in that area, Chattanooga, Knoxville, Johnson City, everywhere. I deal with all of them. And not everybody cares about going the extra mile for their clients. So I'm extremely happy that you and I were able to get together.
Absolutely.
And at least just walk through the sense of like, I have clients that they maybe haven't talked to a realtor just yet, or they're at least just looking and maybe don't want to go as far as getting in contact with a realtor just yet. But they'll ask me, hey, if you're helping me get this permit, do you have anybody on this lake that can help me? I'm like, absolutely, I do. I want to be able to point to the men and women that are actually taking care of their clients, because in the referral industry, I mean, it's one like. My name isn't on the sale. It's not that, but like my name is attached to it to some degree, because like if you crap the bed on it, like that somehow falls back on me. I'm like, Janson, this referral was like, it's going to end up coming back to me, and it's like, and I don't want that. So I want to be connected with people that are trustworthy, that are going to follow through, that are going to have a good customer experience, and everything that you've talked about, and as many conversations as we've had outside of the podcasting arena, but also over the phone and texting and through Facebook, whatever, it seems like you actually give a good customer experience. So I would absolutely 110% recommend you to anybody that goes and buys a house on Chickamauga Lake, Watts Bar, or wherever. Like, please call Carol. She's the one that will actually walk you through it.
Thank you. That's very humbling. I really appreciate that. I know that we've been talking over the last, I don't know, it's probably been a year or more now. And my clients, every single one of them had nothing but positive things to say. And yes, it's certainly a reflection. If I hear something bad, obviously I'm not going to go, and recommend someone. But everybody has nothing but very fond comments, very positive feedback. They're so happy that you were able to help them get what they wanted, how they wanted, and get them through that process, which most people think is very hard.
Yeah.
And for the person that doesn't do it every day, it is a hard process.
Yes.
There is a lot to it. I mean, if you just pull up that 26A permit on the TVA website and you look at it. If it doesn't crash. Fair enough.
That's half the. When I'll have people that will call me now of like, hey, I tried to turn in the permit by myself, which you can do, but either the website crashed or the portal is down somehow and they couldn't upload the pictures of like, hey, I just don't have time for this. I could do it. I just don't have time. I'm not dealing with the stress of it. I'll hand that stress off to you, which I will gladly take. Like, let me do all this. But
and I know that the right information is getting to my client when I send them to you. I know that you're not giving them BS. I know that they're going to be in good hands for whatever dock builder fits their specific needs, whether it be based on cost, quality, materials, something very, there's some niche things out there that we see. And I know that you can handle those things. And if there's a way to not get one past TVA, because you're just not going to do that. Yeah. But if there's ways to work around things, you have the experience to be able to do that, to make some things happen that maybe this guy who worked on his own might not know how to get to.
Yeah.
And I think that that's invaluable for my business. And just like you say, you're a reflection on me. And hopefully, and I want all the positives I can get. I take pride in offering the best of the best.
Yep.
And you are a part of that. And so that's why I choose you to send to my clients.
Heck yeah. And that's a piece of that is like realtors ask me all the time of, Janson, how, like, why would I call you? Like, it's, okay, I'm dealing with this waterfront property. How does it actually work? What can you give me that I'm not going to go do myself or whatever? And it's a few things. So you call me if we've never met before. You see my stuff on social media because that's where I mostly am. It's all right. Hey, Janson, I've got this property at 123 Smith Road. Now what? That's usually the question of like, what can I do now? So I start off with the TVA zoning map, which is, can you even have a dock there? Because like, if you can't have something, then at least inform your client to let them know what they're going to get into. The second thing is, okay, once we determine that you can have something, what size can it be? That's where I go into a whole thing of, having to go back and look at old property records. When was the property transacted? When was it this, to determine the magic date is November 1st, 1999. Anything before that date, you're allowed to have up to 1,800 square feet in general way. Now there's size restrictions in small coves and things like that. But after that is 1,000 square feet. So that might thwart a customer that says like, hey, I want 2 slips and I need a big sun deck that does this, this, and this. You can't have that here.
Right.
And now they're able to say, oh, okay, well, out of the 5 properties, that one's axed because I want to get so pinpointed in my niche needs, which is, or it's wants at the very end of the day, but great. I'll walk you through, if you can have something, what size you can actually have. Then it gets to the configuration of, I'll walk you through the creative process of, all right, well, what are you looking for? Is this the place you plan on dying? Is this the place that you want the kids and grandkids to come to? Is this the flip property? Is this the whatever? All right, well, if this is the place that you want your grandkids to come to, then we can configure this dock in such a way to where you'll have a couple boat slips and they need to be a certain size because boats are getting bigger or it just depends on what type of boat you want to put in the slip. But if we build it this way, then half the sun deck can be covered and then half the sun deck can be completely open to where you see how pale I am. I want to be in the shade at all times. So it's one of those where I want to be in the shade and I want to be under roof, but the rest of it can be completely open to where if you've got the kids or grandkids or family members that are sunning or tanning or whatever, they can, but you don't have to be subject to that. So you start talking through roof lines and how can you best configure the dock to save on materials as opposed to going 13 foot on the sun deck, probably maybe go 12 or 16 because that's what they sell lumber in, and you can walk them through that whole entire process.
Your experience in dock building in the past, I'm sure, helps with that tremendously. Yes. Not just what you see, but you've actually experienced doing it and know some of the things that can come across. And I'm sure, when you're choosing who's in your Rolodex of dock builders, that you're choosing somebody who is not using low quality materials or just a low quality build in general. They're not hitting those poles down deep enough.
Yes.
if it's that type of dock, or maybe this particular spot needs a floating dock. Maybe this whole lake needs a floating dock.
Yeah. Yes.
And advise when people want floating docks of why this dock might not be the best choice. Now, I know those things because I've been on these lakes most of my life. Those are things I know about. But the average agent doesn't know that. The average agent isn't on 25, 30 docks a year. I'm probably not on quite that many, but I'm on a lot, showing
and
homes.
You live on the water.
And I live on the water, and I've got friends. And
you've got friends, you've got the boat, you're going around and seeing everything.
Yeah.
You're in the world as opposed to like you're going and visiting it. You're not visiting it, you live in it. That's the difference.
Yeah, that's very true. Some things I didn't realize when we built our dock, I didn't realize that the way that your dock faces may change how your roof needs to be placed. It may change, like the type of roof I wanted really wasn't a smart plan for where we're located because we face due west, and you don't want a certain style of. You could do it, but the odds if we do have serious wind, they said would come up. And thank goodness we did our research and we were lucky enough to find an amazing dock builder. Unfortunately, he is retired, so I don't recommend him anymore because he's retired. But there's.
Yeah, I mean, you have to pay attention to which ways. Like, are you facing east? Or are you facing west? Because you want west. You want your sun deck to be on the west side because that's where you're going to get the most sun at the very end of the day. If you have a 612 pitch roof as opposed to a 212 pitch roof, and you're having to see straight through the structure, you'd probably rather have a gable roof instead of a hip roof because a gable roof you can act like an open gable to where you can actually see through it to where you don't want to lose your view. If you have just a simple hip roof, then I like hip roofs a whole lot better. That's just me, but it covers the sides better and it protects your boats and things like that. But like. There's
pros and cons both ways.
There's pros and cons, but
we have a gable roof, and one because we face west, and that wind it'll stay down better. But because you're so limited in storage and our house is up the hill a pretty good ways, we can suck up our floatables up into the ceiling.
Yep.
And floatables are towables.
Yeah.
But we can suck those up into the ceiling, and now we have all this extra space and not a lot of clutter on the deck of the dock.
That's the stuff that people don't think about. So whenever realtors call me and they ask me, like, what all can you actually help me with? I can determine if you can have a dock here. I can determine what size dock you can actually have. I can work through the configuration of what's going to work best for your client, because these types of clients want very specific things that are going to fit their lifestyle, which you should think that way. And then I just, at the very end of the day, I can deal with transfers of ownership. If you're going and buying a property that already has a dock that's there, you also have to check and see is what's there actually inside of the previous permit, because if it doesn't line up exactly, then it won't transfer. I wish that people would know that. It's also not the worst thing that can happen, but if it can't transfer, then we'll just do a brand spanking new permit, which will still get it over into your name and will get you all the stuff that you're looking for. So anything to do with permitting, whether sometimes it's also pulling up old permits. I can't tell you how many real estate agents will call me and say, hey, can you pull up the old permit for this particular property? I need to see the precedent that was already established at this place, because maybe there's a dock, but the homeowner doesn't want to get a new permit just yet, but they want to see if this is actually permitted. I get with TVA, I pull the old redacted permit. It'll take the things that are redacted on the actual permit are the old contact information and things like that. And then that's how the sellers are. Most sellers want to be able to, like, everybody wants to stand out in the sense of whenever you're trying to sell your home, you want to make top dollar and you want to limit how many properties others will go to so that yours will stand out. How do you make your property stand out? Have an updated piece of paper, have a permit that's within the last 5 years, that it shows you what all is actually on there, what can be there, so that whenever you go to sell it, you have updated paperwork that says, here's everything that can be here. I have someone that's reputable that actually did the permit as well. And we got approved for 1,800 square feet. We can cut down all of these trees. We can have a boat ramp. We can do dredging. Because most dock builders are just turning in something to just get the dock approved. That's not all of them, but a lot of them are, to where I'm like, yo, there's probably 8 or 10 things that you can put in there that would help set the homeowner up better, as opposed to just trying to set you up in the sense of you're building the dock. That's where you have to ask the question of, are you trying to be the hero in your own story, or do you want them to be the hero in their story, which is they're going through their whole entire life with they might be finally receiving dividends from a stock, or they're finally retired and it's whatever, you got to make them the hero. And that's what it is that I try to provide to all of my clients, in the sense of I'll help take away all of the stress, because I don't want to have to go and learn this, and I don't want to have to go and learn all the rules and regulations, because sometimes they're changing, and it's different lakes, especially on Tellico Lake. There's a whole different set of rules and regulations there, especially with Tellico Village, that are different than Watts Bar, that's different than Chickamauga Lake. So hopefully I can take away all that anxiety.
Well, and that's good for us too, because while we're experts at selling homes and buying homes, we're experts in that. We are not experts in general in dock permitting services. We need a trusted expert for that we can go to. All of our training, they're always saying, stay in your lane. Don't be an attorney. Don't be a home inspector. Don't be don't be the guy who knows how the dirt should run on the side of the house. And so having somebody like you keeping us in our lane and keeping us very specific to keeping our jobs and giving you that opportunity to take something off of our plates keeps us in our not in our place. That's probably a bad thing to say, but it keeps us in the direction we need to be in, and also helps us look better, because you've got that all under control.
Yeah. I have with the realtors that call me, again, I don't want to work with everybody, in the sense of it's cool to make a connection, but I'd rather work with someone that is going to make the property buyer and or seller the hero of the story, and to be connected with people like yourself that will actually walk with others through that. That's what I want to do. I'll spend my time doing that.
A good home inspector is worth its weight in gold. I think a good doc person is worth its weight in gold. And I say doc person because you fit many roles. Not just permitting. Maybe it's just, checking just to check the permit. It could be advice. It may be like, hey, we need to plan for a budget. What is something like this going to cost us? This is the things we like. And then you can tell them the pros and cons. Why would you want maybe the round poles versus the square poles, or why would metal maybe be better in this location or for your specific needs, or maybe a floating dock. And I think helping people get it right the first time is important.
Yes.
I like to get it right the first time.
There's so many rabbit trails that you can go down, and hopefully I'm able to, in this day and age, people want speed and they want quality, and most people aren't willing to pay for it, but the majority of our clients, they've got the money to spend on speed and quality.
Yes.
Perfect. So let's provide it. A way that we provide it is, rather than going down all these different rabbit trails of, well, I need to get on TVA's website, you could just call me and let's go get on a call with them. The practical sense of whenever a real estate agent calls me, practically, Janson, how do I convey to them all of this stuff? Either give me their number and I'll call them directly, and or put me in an email chain with them, or just three-way call me and say like, hey, I'm going to call my guy. He knows all this stuff.
I think you and I have done that before.
Yes. And it's just walking through it and talking through it, and I'll be there to help as best I can, and just walk through it. It's walking. I can't, there's so many contractors, real estate agents, people that do what I do that try to run. Like, people don't want to run. Like, it's not that people don't want to go run, but like, they don't want to be drugged through something. They don't want to have to. They want to move at their own speed because they're also still trying to figure you out a little bit. Like there's like
they've got to earn. Your trust has to be earned by them.
Yeah.
And I do think if they've gotten my trust when they start out with a little bit of trust of you, but I know that I don't have to worry when I put my clients in front of you, because I know you're going to direct them the correct way.
Yes, that's the goal.
I know you're going to send them with the right information. It may not always be what they want to hear.
Yeah.
I always tell people sometimes the answers are not what you want to hear.
Don't shoot the messenger.
But it is what it is.
Yep.
And so then you have to decide, do you want to move forward? We see that in real estate all the time. A property be advertised at 15 acres and the survey will come back and it's 13 acres. Okay, what do we do with this? Are you satisfied with this? Or are you not satisfied? That's not my job to say, are you satisfied or unsatisfied?
Yeah.
That me put this in front of you, and what do you want to do? You want to fight this? Then let's fight it for price. Well, we want to wait and see what the appraisal says. Okay, we'll wait. We love this property. We want to wait and let's see what this does. And
it's a multitude of things.
Oh yeah, it's a multitude. So I often let's talk about home inspections a little bit, because this is gonna key on you. And you may not know this answer because we haven't really talked about this much, but I often get questions about people asking about dock inspections. Should they get a dock inspection? And I know that there are a few home inspectors that do some dock inspections, but what's your feel on that? And I hope I hadn't kind of thrown you under the bus or anything on this question.
No, I provide dock inspections. I actually have people that call me and ask me that all the time. I think that you should.
I agree 100% because there's a lot of things you can't see, and there may be things I don't see. Yeah. When I'm working with a buyer as the buyer's agent, my job is to. My opinion of what my job is I'm to look around for defects while they're looking and deciding if they want to live there. Yeah. And it's not because I'm trying to get the price lower or anything like that, but I want my client walking away a year, 2 years from now being, wow, this was the greatest purchase. I had a great experience.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how good of a job that we do, if something's severely wrong that nobody found, and they find it 6 months after it closes, like mold in an attic. I'm just using that as a random example. Very few clients go climb up in the attic, either because there's not a regular stairway, and we don't have ladders, or number of reasons that doesn't get brought up. And now all of a sudden they've got thousands and thousands of dollars, or maybe there's animals in the roof.
Oh, yes.
And it makes it turns that great experience that you thought you had into something not so good. I always encourage people, if this is important to you, then we need to get it looked at. So I'm glad to know that you do that. What kinds of things do you, like if you go out and do a dock inspection, what are some of the things that you see or maybe don't see?
The thing that I look for at the very beginning is, are the posts in concrete or are they driven in? Because if the posts are in concrete, I'm going to go and tell that person, the potential buyer, you very well could have to replace this in the next however many years. This is not a longevity move. Now, there are some cases where you have to put a post in concrete because you might have hit rock or it's something along that line, but in most cases you can drive them. Some people are just lazy or cheap and want to go the cheap route, which is putting them in concrete. That's the first thing I look for.
Okay.
The second thing I look for is if there's any underwater bracing, specifically in between the posts. It's like the cross bracing. That's something. It's not the foolproof way, but it definitely helps. If you walk on a dock that has it and doesn't have it, the one that doesn't have it, you walk on it and you feel it shift like this. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't necessarily mean like it's going to fail tomorrow. It's not that, but it is like, hey, if you're uncomfortable as I am with this shake, you're going to end up spending $3,500 to be able to put some sort of composite or treated lumber down here in this composite, or not composite. You're going to end up spending around $3,500 ish on pressure treated lumber or composite to put up for the cross bracing. The next thing I look at is decking. What's there? Is it pressure treated lumber? Is it composite? What type of composite? Is it Trex? Is it this? Is it that? Whatever. You got to. Different types of composites will last longer. And what most folks will do is like they don't want to go and replace the whole dock just because the decking is bad. So you try to give them round numbers to say, hey, you're going to spend anywhere between X and Y if you end up. This is pressure treated lumber. It looks like this dock was built roughly 20 years ago, and you might have you have to have a few more years out of it, which is going to be great. But if you want the cheap version of it right now, then just replace the deck boards, and we've got some electrical things that you need to look at. Maybe some cross bracing here, maybe not everywhere, but like you're looking at X amount of dollars. I always try to give them something to expect. The next thing I look for is if there's carriage bolts in the posts or if it's hidden fasteners. A lot of dock builders now are doing either both or doing one or the other. Some folks are actually moving away from carriage bolts and just going heavy on the hidden fasteners. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily going to affect the value, or it'll definitely affect the structural integrity of. Now, I can also take you to 15 good old boys that'll tell you, you're telling me that a carriage bolt that's this size, if it goes through there, it's not as strong as. I'm not here to debate all of that because I feel like science will show us that both strategically placed hidden fasteners that are built up to this type of structural capacity will work just as well as this.
You're not the engineer.
I'm not the engineer. I don't, that is not what I do. But I've been a part of building dozens and dozens of docks that are carriage bolts or hidden fasteners, and they both work great. But you do at least want to bring that up to someone. The next thing I'll look at is the roof. Is the roof that's on there, the roofing that's on there, is it metal roofing? Is it shingles? If it's shingles, who's going to get up there and replace that? It ain't going to be me. I highly doubt that somebody else is going to go out there and do it because it's over water.
Yeah, it becomes an environmental issue at that point.
Yeah, and it's one of those like, okay, you could probably put metal roofing up there and you have it'll outlast me, you, my kids, all of that. And like I'm all for like, give me the maintenance free dock.
Yes.
So I'll try to throw those things in there. The next thing I'll look at is electric. Not electric. The next thing I'll look at will be electrical. Let's see how much power is down here. Is it glitching? What type of lift do you actually have? Are the lift cables still sound? Are there splinters inside of the cables? Mm-hmm. Is it
rolled up all
is it
funky?
Is it spooled up? Is it all types of things?
You don't know how many times I've seen them where they're not nice and tidy, rolled up, and I'm like, ooh.
Yeah.
Probably need to get somebody to look at that.
Yeah, and some of those might be like, now does the lift speak directly to the structure of the dock? The answer is no. But people at least know in their due diligence phase of, okay, that's a $7,000 lift or it's going to cost me $10,000 to go put a brand new lift in there. That lift doesn't look good, nor is it functioning properly. It's going to be $5,000 to fix it, or I could spend $8,500 and get a brand spanking new one. with a warranty that
Right.
has a key fob that'll let it go up and down instead of having to press a button and it go. Those are things that a buyer that if I was a buyer that I would want to know. And then I pretty much have like a checklist that says, hey, this looks good. This looks good. You need to look into possibly replacing the deck boards because they're on their last leg. Here's some things that I would do if it was me, maybe a solid pressure wash, and then you'll be good to go. That's in terms of
Yeah.
dock inspections and home inspections. It's giving it a good probably 30 minutes being down there at the dock and looking under all the crevasses, as it were.
Yeah, some people are always ask, does anybody go and dive down? Well, I don't know if there's anybody specifically doing that. I don't think you dive down and go.
I'm so crazy. I have. I have, because it was one of those to where they specifically said, like, how can you tell me this? I'm like, because I can see the bottom of the post. I usually bring a paint pole out there with me, and I'll go and test the bottom of the pole and see, is it in concrete? How deep is it? Now, you can't obviously tell how deep it is, but you walk on the dock and you can usually feel it. I don't have to
Yes.
go down and dive down, but there's just some people that you need to go dive down there and see. Dive down there and see what? Just dive down there.
I've
like-
gotten those
like,
questions.
it's
Is this about
wintertime.
yeah.
It's-
like,
it-
yeah.
It also helps during whenever the water's down during the wintertime. You can go out there and see a whole heck of a lot more.
Yes.
That's when you really want to go get out there and check and see what all is there and what's not.
I think the electrical, that's always the thing that worries me the most. Like if I see something funky above ground, what's going on under the dock?
Yes.
Because then you've got the whole electrolysis issues, which not only is unsafe for your client to be out there swimming if
Yeah.
the power is on and there is a short, and that's a whole different problem.
Yes.
But if you have a boat that has a metal bottom like a pontoon boat, it's going to start pitting that boat, and boom, you're buying new tunes.
Yeah. You should be a
but-
dock builder.
Well,
That's the stuff that people just don't think through.
and
you tell them, and it's like,
having
what?
my husband in construction, I'm sure I think of more than
The
most.
average, it helps.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the stuff that people don't think through. I try to do the thinking for those that maybe don't know all the right questions to ask. So, yeah, dock inspections, I would absolutely recommend, so that because you very well could still just decide, like, okay, that's worth the risk, or I'll try to maybe negotiate the price in a sense, because maybe as a listing agent, well, it has a dock. Like, well, that dock looks like crap, and it was built 30 years ago. So what does that mean? Is it worth X amount, or is it worth this? Because I'm going to end up having to put another, if I have to tear the whole entire thing down, if the posts are in concrete and it's already starting to wobble, that size dock for a single slip with composite, whatever, with electrical and a lift, you're looking at, like, some people are charging around $125K. You need to know that going into it.
Oh, yeah. The cost of these things is, potentially a quarter of your building costs
Yes.
or more.
Yeah, and it wasn't that way before COVID. I cannot tell
No.
you how many people I talked to that were like, well, I built my first house, wasn't even that. Yeah, don't ask me why COVID informs lumber prices or aluminum prices, or why this works that way. I don't know how they all speak to one another, but it does. And the lumber companies and lumber yards know it, and now they charge us this.
Well, and a lot of these fly-by-night contract, or they call themselves contractors, they're not state licensed contractors.
Yeah.
I'm big on that. I know there's a few guys out there that may or may not have their state contractor's license. They may have some other kind of there's a few other licenses that you could build docks under that would be totally acceptable. And we're not talking about a business license. When a client says, "Hey, I'm licensed and insured," check out that license.
Yep.
And I'm going to go on this little bit of tangent about these, is because there are contractors out there building homes for way less than their license is licensed
Oh,
for.
yeah.
And that's really scary. Now the licensed contract dock builders, they're probably not going to have to worry, because I think the minimum is I
It's
want
like
to say
$500,000.
I think $500,000's the minimum, unless you have like the the fixer upper,
Yeah.
125,000 something or another. Anyway, but there's people out there building in that, and then they go out and try to do these docks. Of course, these what I was going back to, these fly-by-night guys, they'll go and buy their lumber from Lowe's or Home Depot, or maybe I shouldn't be talking about, name brands, but they'll go out and buy from these places, which are great for the DIYer.
Right.
But when you're spending something that's in the 5 figures or more to be putting on your house, the last thing you want to do is use subpar quality products.
Yes.
You want that, if you're going to be putting treated lumber, you want the kiln dried treated lumber. You don't want it twisting and turning. And
Yeah.
again, this is where my knowledge is way more than probably I need for real estate. But but at the same time,
in this niche market like that, like people don't talk about that. I have to. If people want to nerd out with me, I'll nerd out with them. But I'll nerd out with you.
I mean, that's just one of the simple things. There's lots of other things, in there that can make the difference between a good dock builder, a great dock builder, and a terrible one. And there's a lot. There's very few of the in between. There's some great dock builders, and there's some pretty crappy ones.
Yeah. Yes. And the last thing that I can think of, what needs to happen in the sense of disclosures? I would love to be able to get to speak to or talk to or even whatever, get in front of the Real Estate Commission of Tennessee. However, what's the actual name of that?
It's the Tennessee Association of Realtors.
I would love to be able to
would be on the state side. We start with our local associations, and there's multiples that cover our area. There's 3 that specifically cover my area here down in Chattanooga. You mainly have the Chattanooga Association, and then you've got River Counties in Cleveland, and then you've got the East Tennessee Association in Knoxville. That's going to cover most of my area, and there's lots of others around. We could start there, but if we wanted to go to the root, we'd go to the Tennessee Association of Realtors and say, hey, what I think we need to do is I think that we need some kind of disclosure form or something added to our disclosure form. And I'm hesitant to say added to the disclosure form because there are properties that are exempt from them having to disclose things due to maybe not living in it or a transfer of ownership through death or something along that lines. But I think if we had like a standalone form of some sort that we could put on there and say, hey, is there a dock? Is this property eligible for a dock? Does it have a permit? If so, have attached, just like we have we have a septic permit form disclosure that we use that we state, hey, we found the information, we didn't find the information. And say, hey, this is a 2-bedroom septic, 3-bedroom septic, kind of the same thing. The dock build, how large, what is the maximum size available, for this. I don't know if we need to put that. Well, you and I will have to have more discussions on that. But just some things just to say, hey, this stuff is important. This stuff we need to talk about this. This would make my job when I'm working as a buyer's agent so much easier. And I think it's not just it's going to protect the sellers because now they know what information they need to put out there.
Yep. You no longer have the option of being ignorant.
Yes, and I don't mind as a listing agent. I'll certainly do all the work to get them their information. I may just reach out to you and say, hey, I need this on the fly. I need a quick copy of a permit. Can you help me out? And we'll work that out between us. But if the expectation is that stuff has to be there, I think there'll be a little more accountability. It's going to protect our clients. It's going to protect the buyers because they know what they're going in for. There's so many agents that don't know what they don't know when it comes to waterfront permitting related items, and we're not supposed to be the experts on those. Again, you're the expert for that, and you're the one that we're going to reach out to when we need something in that realm. But I think that having some kind of form that says, hey, this is what we found out, or hey, we don't, it's okay to mark unknown, because sometimes there's just, we can't find, they say there's a dock permit. Yeah. But that there's just a little more transparency on that particular part of the home buying, because Tennessee's full of lakes. It's not like there's lots of other states that don't have near as many lakes as we do. Right. And
the majority of the ones that are in Tennessee are TVA.
Yes. Yes, the majority of them are TVA. They're all navigable. There's lots of stuff that goes into that. And I think that if we can give our buyers more information on that and make it as a part of our package and not just as the agent chooses willy-nilly. I think that would help. I think that would help protect our buyers, protect our sellers. If they mark this as what it is, and then the buyer says, "Oh, well, we can't do that down the road," and then they've come and done a permit and didn't follow the recommendation they're supposed to. Well, you didn't follow those recommendations. Everybody's covered there, and I think it protects us as realtors because this is one more thing that we can provide to our clients to help them feel more comfortable about their purchase, and it protects these dock builders because the ones that are doing all the right things, they're not going to have any issues, and it's going to help protect our people that live on the lake that are looking for somebody and making sure that they don't get screwed as well.
Yep.
Thank you so much for having me here. This has been very eye-opening, and I love having you in my corner because I feel like my clients are very well taken care of when I put them in your hands.
Yeah, thank you.
And
I'm thankful.
Appreciate everything you do.
For sure. I'm love being able to pass someone off and knowing that they're going to be in good hands. Whenever they're getting ready to spend a whole heck of a lot of money to me to go and buy something that would be for their family or whatever their function would be. So it's extremely beneficial to me to have you in my corner that way, and I'm glad that it's able to be mutually beneficial. But thank you for being on the Waterfront Permitting Show and talking through shoreline regulations and what actually goes on in real estate transactions on lakefront properties. Because I know it's a very niche thing, but nobody really just talks about it. And it's kind of ambiguous to a certain degree. So I hope that together and along with others that we're able to shed light on all of this, the struggles that happen, and also sharing the good times of, hey, this actually worked and I did these things to help give this type of ending to the story. So thank you for coming today. I hope we get to do it again.
Yes, definitely. Let's plan to do this again.
Sweet.